events that could compromise the availability, integrity, confidentiality, and traceability of data processed, stored, and transmitted. You can get some guidelines from UNITA, the European Cybersecurity Agency. A very good documentation, UNITA. Risk prevention plan. In the age of digitalization, it has never been easier to leak information, especially when cybersecurity strategies are primarily focused on the external threat of the hacker. The security of digital systems is essentially based on technico-centric approach, which tend to exclude human beings or reduce them to the role of the weak links in the systems. The problem is between the child and the keyboard, the best arguments of the engineer. These risk factors are amplified by the limited education and training of users in cybersecurity, leading to a lack of awareness of cyber risk and reducing the possibility of implementing appropriate behaviors. That's why data security must be seen as a corporate social responsibility, a global approach involving all stakeholders. This means implementing a systemic analysis of cyber risk, including human factors. New European regulation, Data Governance Act, EA Act, Digital Service Act, Directive NIS2, etc., who organize measures for high common level of cybersecurity across the Union, are all moving in this direction. Systemic analysis of cyber risk, including human factors. National laws must be adopted now. Thus, the governance of the shared common space we have to put in place a step-by-step methodology. First step, the role of the and responsibility of the shared common space governance. The governance must define a common strategy for data management and digital security. This requires a systemic analysis, which goes beyond the usual technico-centric approach to include organizational, human factors, and stakeholders. In fact, the interdependencies between players are amplified in the context of digitalization. Next, management must be in place the resources needed to achieve the ambition of its strategy. This includes recruiting competent personnel, the IT teams. Step 2, dissemination of the data and cyber strategy to internal stakeholders, raising staff awareness and educating them is essential in order to create an awareness of the risk involved, so that users can adapt their behavior appropriately. Humans are not the weakest link. Their vulnerabilities are linked to a lack of knowledge of the tools and technologies they use, and digital security. They can become the strong link, and this is mainly the responsibility of the organization. One of the key lies in the contractual clauses with your digital partners. Step 3, know your external stakeholders and take appropriate measures in your digital relation with them. Be careful, geopolitics is a part of a digital security. I end with the word of Henry Ford: coming together is the beginning, staying together is progress, working together is success. So, dear researchers, I wish you all the best of data sharing spaces for the future.
he actually showed us that we need to shift from techno-centered approach to a much global and much global strategies for to implement cyber security and data security in general into alliance. Thank you. Let's take some questions from the audience. No question on cyber security, I guess. So, yeah, yes.
First, thank you very much for your presentations and all the presenters of this time for your presentations. I will have 3 questions, actually, but not 2 questions to the same person. My first question would be to Sonia. To know if you think that there is a difference now in the definition of an economic activity in the realm of the internal market and competition law. In that sense that in the cases where it comes the exclusion of an economic nature of the activity comes from the absence of payments and in competition law it comes from the fact that it operates on the markets and that can be competitive. And therefore, don't you think that it could pose a problem for the EIG, maybe? Because the EIG only applies for economic activities that without the definition given of what constitutes an economic activity, and therefore we don't know if the EIG is for the if for the EIG we have to retain the definition that comes from the internal market realm or the competition realm. Whether it is with this, and I can bring you the mic.
Yes, thank you for the question, Milan. Indeed, I think the answer, I would not have a clear answer. I think indeed there can be a difference from the definitions that we've seen. The thing is that if these definitions will be applied from what we've seen in the cases of the courts, they will be applied on a case-to-case basis. So an assessment of the specificity of the economic or to be qualified as an economic activity will be assessed in each case in particular. So depending on the angle which the case will take, whether it will be a discussion on whether these are services performed on the internal market and then we are in the purely internal market setting with no discussion about competition rules, then for sure this aspect of remuneration, for instance, and remuneration comparative to other actors at market level, that will be relevant. But if the question comes from the perspective of competition law, for instance, whether let's say a research contract that is in a research contract, the price that is proposed by the EIG, for example, is lower than that compared to other market actors, because this is the sort of a dominant position, because it's the EIG represents an alliance of so many universities, for instance. In the discussion about the abuse of dominant position, I would say that the economic activity would be sort of viewed in a wider sense, perhaps, and not so much sticking to the actual remuneration, rather looking at what kind of, we know that in competition that there is always this very extensive interpretation of terms, and that the court itself does not really stumble upon very narrow definitions. Actually, it works with alternative definitions exactly for the purpose of expanding the applicability of competition rules. So I think there's a possibility that the court will be much more open to discuss it, not from a very strict services, freedom to provide services perspective, but rather from an economic activity in this sense of an activity that can take an economic form, even if it's not in following the specific definition of services. So the question, the answer is it depends. Yes.
I may globalize my two last questions to ask for the last panel. But in different interventions about other conventional public documents on data law, it seems that the fact that the activities are operated by a public entity, public person, allows it to be easier either to be able to use the public service legal basis in the case of the GDPR, or to be able to apply the public documents rules. And would you think that it would be an advantage to have a ruling that could be qualified as a public person? And would you think that if some of the members of these public persons are private persons, it would pose a problem in the realm of the GDPR or for public documents?
I think I can reply partially. Okay, so I have not gone into much detail, I guess, in my presentation. Obviously, it makes things more complicated. In some cases, it's easier if you are a public authority, and in some cases, it's easier if you are a private entity. The thing is that here we are mixing both of them, you know? So, for example, I said that universities use this public interest legal basis quite a lot because it's kind of very easy for them. But private entities can also use this public interest basis, but it's a little bit more complicated because they have to, ensure that they can show that they are working in the public interest, you know. So here we should be quite careful if we were going for that legal basis. Maybe it will be easier to have the contract basis in that case. And one basis that private entities use most of the time is legitimate interest, because everything and anything is a private, is a legitimate interest. But public authorities cannot use that basis. So the grouping actually by itself would be able to use that universities cannot. But if we are speaking about transferring the data, then we have there two different bodies. And also, you know, for example, when we're saying, speaking about sending data to Ukraine, for example, if you do it among public authorities, there is the possibility of an agreement between public authorities, but not with a private entity. There you have, obviously you have the instruments, but they are slightly different. So it's a layer of complication, but on some points it's easier. As I said, if this was an EGTC, it should have a data protection officer, because all public authorities need a data protection officer. I guess most EGTCs share it with one of the others, because you can share a DPO as a public authority. But as a private entity, it's something we have not had to think about, at least, about the grouping, because it does not need right now a data protection officer. It will need it only if it really starts to treat data at scale. It's just that you have to be mindful of like two different regimes at the same time. But if you just are mindful of them, there is, as I said, ways to do almost everything we want to do. But we have to know that there are things we could not.
You wanted to add something about it? in French.
C'est plus simple. Pour répondre aussi à votre question, la nature de la personne, si elle est publique ou si elle est privée, c'est pas ça qu'il faut regarder en fait. C'est surtout la criticité de la donnée, parce qu'il y a des règles qui s'appliquent à la personne, mais il ne faut pas oublier que j'ai beau être une personne publique et faire ma mission de service public, il ne faut pas oublier que dans la recherche, la thématique de la recherche fait qu'il y a des règles particulières. Par exemple, la santé. La santé, il y a des règles spécifiques. Vous avez beau avoir une mission de service public, il y a des choses que vous devez être très prudent parce qu'il ne faut surtout pas que la personne subisse son préjudice. Donc, en fait, ce que j'aime avec d'ailleurs le droit européen, et c'est, on va parler de human rights, et c'est beaucoup plus large que la notion française. Et en fait, dès lors qu'on est, on est dans l'esprit de la loi, c'est ce que je dis souvent aux personnes qui sont non juristes, je leur dis, il y a la lettre de la loi. La lettre de la loi, c'est l'affaire des juristes. Toi, tu dois comprendre l'esprit de la loi et protège la personne qui est concernée par les données que tu es en train de travailler. Et d'où aussi toutes ces interdictions de recroisement de bases de données. J'ai beau avoir une mission de service public, je ne dois pas causer du tort aux personnes. Donc, en fait, il y a des principes à respecter et dès lors qu'on les a en tête, ça évite de faire des bêtises, mais la priorité, c'est l'information, la nature de l'information, c'est la première question à se poser.
Excellent.
If I may ask a question, it's also in the field of data, and I think it follows up parts of the conversation you just had. If I understood correctly, what you said there about the awareness that is needed in any plan related to cybersecurity, setting up a tool, whether at university level, public entity, with a private entity, or with a new legal entity, like in this case with G. I was wondering in the perspective for UNITA, how you would include both of you, both for the development of the tools, so for ANA, and both for the security of the tools, how this could work with a legal entity. It is very clear that cybersecurity is a problem for universities, because there's not enough awareness, not enough training, and there is a use of multiple tools, many of which are governed by multinational private companies with security issues and data that can be leaked to third parties if universities aren't careful when they start using their tools. To give you an example, during the pandemic, there was a rush to use these private tools, and no time, as we saw with governments, to check the contracts or to check what you call the critical nature of the information that will be that needs protection, or that will go online in one way or another on private platforms. So my question is the following: how can we proceed with UNITA for data sharing? We know that there's a step towards IT with EAG. This poses difficulty for ANA of how the EAG can generate new rules for the different universities and implement common rules for the different universities in the situation that we know. So that's one question for how can we move forward with data sharing through this legal entity. Is it a good way to go? Is it the only way to go? And how can we proceed? And on cybersecurity, is it an opportunity, a good one or a bad one, to reconsider cybersecurity? Is it a way to sort of foster all the risks through the implementation of new rules? And do we have to be selective about the data, the ones that are critical or not? Or should this apply simply to all sorts of data with protected platforms and training for any IT individuals, even members of staff who use tools, whether they are public or whether they are from the markets?
So maybe Anna, you can start, and Ingrid finish with security, okay?
Okay. I would really like to know the answer to this question, but here I will go maybe to a couple of anecdotes. But the thing is that we need to do more basic thinking probably at university level, because I'm not an expert on the GDPR, but I have this data protection background, and not each day, but very, very commonly, I see things that both administrative staff, professors are doing that they should not do from a data minimization perspective, cybersecurity perspective, and the things that we don't have training about this, basic training at university. I'm not just thinking about the grouping, I'm thinking at more basic level at each university, we should have more training about this. And we have not suffered as hospitals have suffered in the past, but we are also some not so critical, but we are public infrastructure, and we could be subject to many cyber attacks, and in some ways we are not prepared. But when I started this project, I linked with the data protection officer in UNITA, which is a fantastic, really nice lady, who is one person service, and there is no way she can cover all the aspects of data protection in UNITA. And I was thinking maybe we need a processing protocol for the grouping, and I discovered we don't have a processing protocol for UNITA. This maybe. Okay, so it's like more basic thinking that. To jump here to think about, of course, I think it's very good that for the grouping, we start thinking about these issues from the very beginning, because it has been created with IT in mind. So I think it's very important that from the beginning, we really interiorize all this. But I think it's also a question of more wider, training and thinking at university level.
Alors, je dirais que la cybersécurité est une opportunité pour les organisations parce que finalement, en fait, le risque zéro, on sait qu'il n'existe pas. Donc, ce qui s'est passé pendant la pandémie, il a fallu réagir et il n'était pas question de stopper les pratiques et de mettre complètement à l'arrêt. Il y avait déjà suffisamment de dégâts. Donc, il y a le côté, en fait, et c'est ce que je travaille en fait avec mon équipe, c'est l'intégration de tout ce qu'on appelle la safety, tout ce qui est sûreté. En fait, des démarches d'amélioration continue, parce que de toute façon, l'organisation, si j'exige le maximum dès le départ, la marche, elle est insurmontable. Et c'est rédhibitoire. En revanche, plus je travaille en cybersécurité, et plus je prends un plaisir à distribuer des baffes aux ingénieurs, en fait, parce qu'ils utilisent la stratégie de la peur pour éviter de communiquer avec les humains. Mais la stratégie de la peur, c'est le meilleur moyen de fermer toute personne. C'est pour ça aussi que je travaille beaucoup avec les sciences cognitives, parce qu'en fait, on oublie que c'est de la numérisation d'une société. C'est une société qui se transforme. Et à un moment donné, j'ai des ingénieurs qui me disent, toi, humain, tu vas rentrer dans la case que j'ai créée parce que j'ai rien compris à ce que tu faisais, mais j'ai pas envie de comprendre ce que tu fais. Donc, je vais te contraindre à changer tes pratiques et à changer ton métier. Non, mais non, c'est pas ça, mon gars. Je t'explique, c'est toi qui dois comprendre mon métier, qui dois comprendre mon usage parce que tu dois numériser mon métier, tu dois numériser mes pratiques. Donc, ils ont pris le schmilblick à l'envers. Et en fait, ils ont dit, non, mais t'inquiète, je gère. Toi, tu es trop débile pour comprendre. Le problème est entre la chaise et l'écran. Mais le problème est que moi, je me rends compte, plus j'avance, plus je me rends compte que dès que les personnes leur expliquent comment ça fonctionne, tout de suite, ça devient beaucoup plus fluide. Mais tant dans l'adaptation des comportements, il n'y a plus de contraintes parce que finalement, c'est à l'ingénieur qu'on donne des baffes. C'est plus à l'utilisateur. On lui dit, c'est pas parce que tu maîtrises mal ton outil, c'est pas parce que toi, tu maîtrises mal ton métier, c'est pas parce que tu ne veux pas faire. Ils ont des problèmes de communication. Ils vont nous dire, vous exprimez mal votre besoin. Oui, mais moi, je ne comprends pas ton besoin d'ingénieur. Je ne sais pas ce dont tu as besoin pour travailler. C'est toi qui poses mal ta question. Donc, en fait, c'est vrai qu'aujourd'hui, moi, dans la sécurisation juridique des projets numériques, Je suis un peu celle qui sert d'interprète et qui crée du lien. En tout cas, tout ce que je vois aujourd'hui, c'est que dans les transformations, et dès qu'on aborde la cybersécurité dans le sens sécurité numérique, donc l'approche très globale, par le principe de minimisation des collectes, ces petites règles et tout, finalement, les logiciels, qu'est-ce qui rame moins? Parce qu'on a fait le ménage, parce qu'on a fait le tri. Donc, en fait, ça demande du travail et de l'effort à la conception au tout départ pour dire quel est mon besoin. Et puis, en fait, après, derrière, ça met du temps, c'est du step by step. Il ne faut pas se faire peur, il faut y aller étape par étape pour travailler proprement. Et c'est comme un contrat, quand on doit le rédiger, un contrat de 150 pages, on ne le fait pas en 48 heures, on est bien d'accord. Donc là, c'est pareil, ça se co-construit en fait. C'est de la co-construction entre les sciences humaines et sociales et les sciences de l'ingénieur. Et c'est là qu'il y a la clé de la réussite. Et finalement, les organisations, vous verrez que vous remettez l'humain au centre. Les outils sont beaucoup plus simples à utiliser. Et puis finalement, il y a moins de stratégies de contournement de la règle parce que les règles sont adaptées aux besoins.
And I
Which
wanted
goes
to,
back to training
yeah,
and
exactly.
the staff to take care of it.
Yeah.
Unawares. Thank you.
And you wanted to.
Yes, I wanted to, because I have not said that there is now a very interesting debate about data sovereignty and universities and data dependence, because actually we are feeding the data of our students to business that don't have the public interest in mind, and there is a lot of interesting work done around this issue that I think it's very relevant right now, and it's going to be more and more relevant in the future.
Yeah. And also maybe you want to add something on a research data leak that we have at the university level, and the geopolitical issues that you mentioned earlier is very important, maybe regarding this this important issue as well.
Donc, par rapport à, j'ai fait une petite allusion à un moment donné sur le fait que le monde de la recherche est un monde qui est particulièrement ciblé aussi dans les histoires d'ingérence entre États. Et en fait, ça nécessite aussi de prendre conscience des données qu'on peut traiter et de ce qu'on peut déduire du travail et de ce qu'on réunit en information. Et les enjeux géopolitiques, des fois, on les sous-évalue. Mais c'est aussi dans le choix de nos partenaires, c'est dans le choix de nos matériels, c'est le choix de nos publications. Et moi, je sais que le ministère avec lequel je travaille, déjà, il faut savoir qu'en cybersécurité, 30% des atteintes aux données, c'est de la menace extérieure, 70%, c'est un problème interne de fuite d'informations et d'exposition qui fait qu'on a été ciblé. L'ingénierie sociale, enfin, on parle beaucoup du ransomware, mais le ransomware est le résultat d'une démarche d'ingénierie sociale. Et si la démarche, et si ça fait mouche, c'est qu'à un moment donné, il y a eu une information qui a été mise en ligne. Je peux vous assurer que LinkedIn, c'est une super source d'information pour les personnes qui font de l'ingénierie sociale, parce que c'est là qu'on va retrouver plein de contacts et plein de points d'entrée. Donc, quand on pense cybersécurité, approche très globale, on peut avoir une approche très technocentrée, comme font beaucoup jusqu'à présent, qui est en train d'être virée par l'ANSSI. En tout cas, les enjeux sont très grands et moi, je vous invite à surveiller tout ce qui va pouvoir concerner, surtout dans le monde de la recherche, qui est un monde ciblé. Attention aux influences étrangères, attention aux ingérences, surtout sur certaines thématiques qui sont attractives. Donc, vous pourriez être surpris parce que beaucoup vont penser que c'est la défense, mais je peux vous assurer que le secteur de la santé, c'est le seul secteur où la donnée qui est captée, c'est de la donnée qui est vraie tout le temps. Donc, il n'y a qu'à voir nos cartes vitales. Hein. Mais d'ailleurs, juste petite anecdote pour voir comment les médias ne sont pas doués, mais en même temps, comment certains aussi acteurs de la cybersécurité viennent vous expliquer. Ne vous inquiétez pas, vos données ont été touchées. Le seul truc qui a fuité, c'est le numéro de sécurité sociale, mais ils n'ont pas votre nom, prénom. Parce que pour le commun des médias, la donnée personnelle, c'est nom, prénom. Donc là aussi, c'est-à-dire qu'on entend tout et n'importe quoi. Et il faut voir aussi que la cybersécurité aujourd'hui se passe surtout sur les réseaux et sur les médias. Et c'est l'organisation de reprendre la main et de passer le bon message, parce que tant qu'on fait de la mauvaise information, on a des mauvais comportements.